Is Tuesday. We'll be joined by Rob Browne of SEC Sidelines, the man, Buddy Martin himself, David Whitley of the Gainesville Sun, and then later by former Florida State offensive lineman, my friend, Zebre Sanders. All that and more on the Tuesday edition of the Buddy Martin Show.
What about me? You didn't
And
talk about
executive
me.
producer, well, you're not Buddy Martin, you're Brendan Martin. It's Taco Tuesday.
It's
Let's do
Taco
it.
Tuesday, yo. Get your tacos, grab a drink, get it on. It's the Buddy Martin Show. Hit the like and subscribe. We'll see you in a second.
For Buddy Martin, call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the Buddy Martin Show. I'm your host, Loren Meadows. I'll be joined tonight by David Whitley of the Gainesville Sun, Rob Browne, the man, the myth, the legend, Buddy Martin, and executive producer Brendan Martin will be joining us as well. We'll talk everything from the big win on Saturday by the Florida Gators against the Ole Miss Rebels, playoff rankings, and then the Gators heading to Florida State this weekend to take on their in-state rival, trying to get win number 7 and move into maybe a little better bowl and maybe stake the claim as the boss in that rivalry after a 2-year hiatus with 2 straight losses by the Gators. And then ultimately we'll be joined by Zebre Sanders, former Florida State offensive lineman. He'll share some Bobby Bowden stories, maybe some Jimbo Fisher stories, but just give us insight into what that rivalry is like during the week. So with that, I say good evening, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
All right. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me over just for a minute here. I just got through watching the rankings. I'm still not sure what I watched, but
I'm not either, but
there's still a lot of teams in there like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So what'd you think, buddy? We can jump right into it, or we can.
There's so much left on the table. The rival games this weekend, and I'm focused on the SEC. I'm thinking what's happened there. We talked about it on my show earlier this week. The remarkable weekends we've just seen, especially for Florida, and the Cinderellas. I mean, the Vanderbilt story is one. South Carolina's an unbelievable. If they beat Clemson, man, they've had a year. And Florida is likely going to go 7-5. If they beat them, they're favored by what? I think they're favored by 16 points. Rob would know, or so. So there's some good teams down there, but none of them will make the playoffs. In terms of the playoffs, I'm not sure what to think. Let's just see how they roll out. Obviously, the SEC ought to get 4 teams, but may not because they eat their own young. They knock each other off. So it feels like the committee says they're valuing the teams, but you look at the records and you see all 10-1, 10-1, 10-1, 10-1. So I don't know. I'm really I'm more confused now than I was. I won't be able to make a judgment on it until it's final. But right now, there's an awful lot of good teams down there and, down below in the bottom part of this at 14, 15 in there that may be there before it's over. And I can't get over Boise State being so high. Wow. I mean, they've earned it, but it kind of surprises me.
Well, I think the question is, and I'll pose this to David and Rob, has Boise State earned it? I've always took my thing to be, if you're taking the 12 best teams, and I had a discussion with somebody who's an Iowa State fan, if we're taking the 12 best teams, okay, take the conference champions out of it. But David, does the SEC deserve to be penalized for cannibalizing themselves with good football teams that if we had to have our last ham sandwich and bet it on who could maybe win some of those games, I would maybe put Ole Miss and Alabama, maybe even Texas A&M up against some of those that are in the top 12.
Oh, yeah, if you go by the eye test and you really had to bet on it and you said, all right, your life depends on this right now, who would you bet on winning? Boise State or Alabama, Boise State or Ole Miss, something like that? Or when you go on down there, I mean, looking at the three, SMU, Indiana, and Arizona State. Now, if you'd have told me those three would be in the playoffs right now and Alabama wouldn't, I mean, I think we're that'd be like saying, 2 months ago that Billy Napier would be coach of the year, but who knows? It's happening. You can make a case for it. It's just been crazy.
Archery says he should be.
Yeah, well, considering what he's had to deal with and overcome, he can make a case for it. But I mean, it's just a head scratcher. But I think it's easy to make the case that a 3-loss SEC team should be ahead of a 2-loss team, but it's tough to make it when it's a 1-loss team that you're doing it against. Like currently, if Indiana still has 1 loss at the end of the year, or SMU, and you have a 3-loss team, the eye test says I would still probably take some of those teams over SMU, but it's just hard to justify when it's a 1-loss team versus a 3-loss team.
Rob?
I can tell you one thing, the SEC has got to fight for its reputation this weekend because Big Ten is going to get 4 teams in there. I don't care if they have to, move heaven and earth. That's what's going to happen. SEC, last weekend, you had Ole Miss go down early, then Alabama, then Texas A&M. But A&M's still alive because if they beat Texas and they win the SEC, they're going. Georgia still thinks the best team in the league because of their win at Texas and the way they came back against Alabama. But Alabama, if anyone thinks that Alabama will not be motivated to smoke Auburn, they're crazy. The last 4 games, Auburn's lost by an average of 25 points. They've lost 6 straight up there after the comeback in 2010. So I look for Alabama. I don't know how Auburn's going to win. I mean, they could do it, but I think Alabama makes the playoff because they're Alabama. And so Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, and either Texas or Texas A&M. That's your 4. That's where it's coming in. And, buddy, remember when we all picked? I picked the Gators to win 8 games this year. Now, if they beat Florida State and they win the bowl game, they win 8. That entitles me to the prize of a box of fluorescent bulbs and some sponges. But
kind of a backdoor cover, though, I will say.
Right. Well, backdoor cover by all of us. But I do think one guy now, even though I didn't pick him in my article at the beginning of the season, I said that the Gators would beat Ole Miss.
Everybody
I did. I called it. Back me up, Rob. Back me up, Rob. I said it.
Oh, hey, guys, remember that day back in January of last year when I mentioned?
Buddy, I gave you credit. Now, listen, I gave you credit for DJ Lagway after seeing him throw on 2 clips. So come on now, give me my credit. I said the Gators will beat Ole Miss.
You know what? It's like, David, it's like this. It's like all of us are right twice a day at broken clock.
Right.
But let's be honest, collectively, and you can raise your hand if you think I'm wrong. We all at one point or the other doubted if Billy was the guy and said he should probably leave.
Sure.
I have
no doubt.
I'll raise 2 hands at that. Yeah.
He was a dead man walking. That I said that. I said, I don't see him turning this around. I could not visualize how in the world he was getting out of this mess. But that's the remarkable thing about it. And not only has he gotten out of it, now my colleague and friend Shane Matthews doesn't put much in this. I'm not a recruit guy, but boy, oh boy, you have to be blind not to see what's happening and all these flips. I call them flipperooskies. There's no Seminoles left. They all committed paying Gators. I mean, they're going to have a massive flip. Now, look, they're not committed there yet, but you take a guy who's been committed to USC for a year, and suddenly he's now commits to Gators. There's stuff going on underneath there that we can't see with a naked eye. So it's not just the fact that they won a game or 2 or 3 and beat back-to-back ranked teams. what they have done and the way they have done it. And Lagway has become a real popular guy. All of a sudden, people are raving about Lagway being the greatest young quarterback in the country. Okay, all that's true. We've always said, Rob, the national media is a step behind. Always, they are.
Always.
But now look, we have to take our share of this. We've all kind of said, file on you, get somebody else. I will say on my behalf, before Strickland gave him the reprieve, I said, I don't see a guy out there worth it. I think they should take the money. They should go get it in the NIL and not pay not pay Billy. And I said, I think they should give another. Oh God, we can't keep him around. Oh, we'll be disaster. So now everybody's got their own version of the truth. The fact is that Billy Napier dodged a big bullet, and he's lucky to be here, and he's taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you guys can, I'm gonna have my time to talk, but I mean, I think we all just looked at. I mean, the one thing I love about the four guys that we have on this show, and even Brendan, is we try to keep it real. And what you did, buddy, was you looked at the possible situations, you wrote about it, and then, like you said, you came to the understanding that there really wasn't anybody that could save this thing. And was it in Florida's best interest to pay somebody another $25+ million a year to leave and be basically worse off than you were before? And I mean, Rob, you've seen this at Auburn and things like that. I mean, I just think it was that point where we were just like, I think the Georgia game opened up a lot of eyes just from the standpoint of, hey, man, this team is going toe to toe and they have very little to play for but each other. And they continue to show, throw out the Texas game, but they continue to show up and show that this is a group of young men that believe in what's being put out there on a week-to-week basis during the times that we don't see that means the most, Rob.
I mean, I did more of a fundamental analyst thing about picking the Gators. I just said that last 5-game stretch, everybody got caught up in logo fever. Mm-hmm. And as they got closer to it, I was like, well, I think they win 2, possibly 3 of the last 5, and they're on the course to do that. But all that being said, I mean, we all said, if you're going to get rid of a coach and an athletic director, a couple of them have told me this off the record, now you're not going to see it. Now, April is when we find out if the House settlement is going to stand, okay? We don't know yet. And we're about to go into a portal where everyone, freshmen, graduates, everybody can hit the portal with 0 restrictions. And everybody's trying to budget based on a $21 million payout and revenue and all this. We don't know a lot of things, but what we do know about Florida is who are the coaches? If you make a change, if you sell a stock, what are you going to replace it with? You can't sit in cash very long. Money markets don't pay jack. So but I just say DJ Lagway, and y'all talked about it here. Y'all seen him play. This guy is a transformative player, and compare him to Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. Who would not take DJ Lagway? And he didn't get an NIL deal like Nico did. It's not even close.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're talking about, and I don't want to talk too much here. I'm going to take off just a minute. I think we're talking here about not necessarily loyalty oaths, but degrees. Because let's face it, what happened if you read the fine print? David, you probably saw this, and Billy talked about it in his press conference. They ask you what changed things. And every player pointed back to the open date and said, we found something in the open date. I laughed at it at first. I thought, how can open date be so important? But they found the chops. They began to believe in themselves and each other. And Billy said it was very significant. And they even asked Lagway, well, what happened? What was this? He said, Coach Napier never wavered. He was the same all the time. Now, that was boring. His press conferences weren't very good. He didn't give us many answers. But to the players, they understood that. He protected them. He put them in a cocoon. And they finally woke up and realized what a performance they put on these last 2 weeks. Now, having said that, there were some people who did go out, stick their chin out there. Rob, you were pretty loyal in that regard too. And this is not, like we all have said. I want to mention a couple of guys. One is Freddie Weeby. He might be under still right now. He personally called me and texted me and said, I really am troubled that we're not treating Billy Napier fair. I think we need to get behind him and support him, et cetera, et cetera. He was the first one. And all I did was it caused me to take another look at it. I didn't switch my opinions. I said, let me go back and look at myself and check myself and say, am I really looking at this both ways? And then guys like him, guys like our sponsor, Jeffrey Melvin, very loyal to the court. Now, look, fans have that capability. David, as a journalist, you don't really have it. But let's face it, we're not just pure out and out, straight up journalists who, for the New York Times, who everything is cut and dry. We try to have a little feeling about what we do, and it's a little subjective. So in our columns. So I think, hey, we got what we got now. It's never been better here in the last 5 years. Like I said for my column today, have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy all that cranberry crumble pie. Eat all that fattening food. Enjoy it because you can enjoy your Thanksgiving. There's a pretty good chance they're going to beat Florida State, I'd say. And Rob is going to be right. They're going to go 7-5 and could go 8-5. I guarantee you, anybody thought years ago 8-5 had to be either drunk or foolish.
Well, it depends on when you asked them, but go ahead. You mean after Texas A&M? Yeah, for sure. But, one thing I wanted to throw out there too, David, and we talk about the press conference, do you see a different mood? You were there, we were there yesterday. Has the mood changed even from those who have to be a little bit more critical and assess things outside of the fandom, so to speak? Do you feel like that's changed?
Well, the mood has changed just because the facts have changed. Now you're covering a winning team, and everybody's upbeat, and it's easy to be positive when you're out there, beating two ranked teams as opposed to getting boat raced. I was one of those who, I wanted to be like Freddie Weeby and believe in Billy and think he could get it done. But I mean, as you said, after Texas A&M, there was no objective way to look at it other than this is the Titanic. I mean, there was nothing. There was no sign of life. And they weren't just getting beaten. They were, there was nothing to hang anything on. There's no signs of improvement. It wasn't like you could say, well, Billy had won 10 games the past 2 years, and we know it's just a matter of him getting this ironed out. It was a lost cause. They were dead in the water. But then comes that open week. And everybody generally says, yeah, open week, we'll get it turned around. But this is the first time that I can remember in my 89 years of covering sports or so that it was really true that they went out there and a lot of it was the attitude, but a lot of it was just but also it was just simplifying the defense, because that defense was just it was the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing for the first 3 games, and I think that they just gave these kids too much in preseason with this, bringing in Ron Robertson, the creeper and whatnot. I mean, I think maybe a good defense, but they weren't able to digest it all and learn it all on the fly. And they said, look, you can just see they were thinking, they weren't playing, they weren't reacting. And so they simplified it, and the guys just started playing ball. And that has been key. And then, just the offensive line, the much maligned offensive line, I still don't know what happened there, but, it's not, they haven't exactly turned into the Great Wall of Florida, but they've been, the good wall of Florida. Let's put it that way.
They definitely have.
And I didn't see that coming either. So it was, so hats off to Freddie because he had it right. But I don't feel bad for feeling that, because at the time there was nothing to base it on, on just an objective basis. Hey, they're going to turn this around.
Right.
Hey guys, let me get this in real quick. I'm going to leave because your guest is here. I want to say, we talked about this all week. Bowl game, it changes every day. Today there's a new one. The latest I heard was Duke in the Gator Bowl. Now, of course, Clemson could go up there too, but I'm hearing more and more the Gator Bowl if they went out. They have to win out. What do you think?
I like the Gator Bowl. I think that would be obviously, these bowl games to keep things interesting. They want to want to get the best matchups, and obviously, having a bunch of players from Jacksonville, I think that would be cool. That would really, put things in it, kind of culminate things in a pretty good light. That's always been kind of Florida's second home. So to go to the Gator Bowl and and have an opportunity to get 8 wins, I think would be huge. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, selfishly, I'd love to see him come to the Liberty Bowl. But I think a bowl game like that's about selling tickets and getting asses in the seats and making money for Jacksonville. And that's a win-win deal. And it also doesn't hurt for recruiting. I don't think there's any question about that. And like, I think if you look at everybody on this panel and other people that are on the Buddy Martin show, and we have them on the sidelines, the fact that people are hypercritical, like David referenced the Texas A&M game, is that the fan base cares and they want writers to, tell the truth. They want the media to tell the truth. What would have been most concerning to me as somebody looking at it from 10,000 feet would be if there was apathy. The people didn't care. You're packing 90,000 in the swamp at every game. And now what's happening is the recruits are saying, you know what? I don't have to go to USC. I don't have to go to a Big Ten school. I don't have to go somewhere else. I can stay in state. When that happens, the Gators are, just like Florida State took advantage back in the mid-'80s when Florida got put on probation. And look what they did, that run. Florida right now and Florida State, look at those two programs. Florida is closer to coming back. They were earlier this season, they were laying flat on their back in a hospital bed, on a breathing machine. Now they're walking down the hall and going to the bathroom on their own. I mean, I think the talent is going to come. You cannot buy the kind of PR DJ Lagway brings you. And it all starts up with the quarterback.
All right. So with that, we'll kind of mosey into Florida State and talk about, what this rivalry is going to look like. Buddy, appreciate you coming on. You got any last words? You want to say hello to former Seminole Zebre Sanders?
Hi, Z. How you doing, man?
How you doing? Nice to meet everybody.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming on the program.
No problem.
We'll see. I'm going to say, I'm heading out. Rob's driving this thing, and these guys will take you right down. Be careful to the ditch. Don't let them do that, okay? Be careful. They're good guys. Thanks, Z.
No problem. I got you.
All right, and with that, we welcome in. I'm gonna try to go down the lineup. Former Clayton Northmont offensive lineman, high school All-American, 2012 fifth-round draft pick of the Buffalo Bills, former NFL and CFL lineman. I've known this young man since he was 14 years old, guys, and he's probably as big as he is now, when he was 14 years old. But Zebre Sanders played for 4 years with Florida State Seminoles, and just really glad to have him on. Just somebody that could shed light into what this week is for both programs, somebody who's been through the recruiting process, and we're gonna buzz him with a lot of questions tonight. But good seeing you, Zebre. Been a long time, buddy.
Yeah, man. No problem, Coach.
No problem. Definitely. So what's that?
I said you look the same.
You do too, bro. You got a little bit more hair, but that's it. But yeah, no doubt. So Zebre, just tell us, we talked about recruiting and things like that, and what goes into sometime the guys flipping. I mean, I know you had looked at a couple, I know you were looking at Clemson, Florida was in the mix, Georgia was in the mix. But as far as recruiting is concerned, I mean, what goes into, really honing down? There was no NIL at the time, and I know your family wasn't about that, but what is it that really makes a place feel like home and finally saying, hey, this is where I want to be?
I mean, one, it's the team chemistry. I mean, when you take official visits or you go to colleges and meet the team, having the time to do locker room visits, meeting with players that are playing at that time, you really get to see just how people connect with the team chemistry and just see if it's something that feels location and things like that. But that is one of the major factors that goes into it, just the chemistry and how, you are as a person, how you think it'll fit to the school. Another major thing is just, how, seeing, the talent coming in. Like, if you want to go to a school, factor in, do you feel like losing every week, but, having a good, education, or do you want to go somewhere and compete with the championship? And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of teams and even, players coming up flipping because they want to go somewhere where they can win and also have good camaraderie.
All right. Now, when we look at this rivalry, the week that is Florida State, Florida, just talk about what that is. Is there a different air? Is there a different buzz in the air? Is there something that, this is it. We waited. It's always the last game. This is what we waited for. You went 2-2 in the rivalry. So, and you saw it under Tebow, and then you guys got those two on the back end. But what is it like? What is the buzz with the rivalry and kind of how just you approach the week? Obviously been a little bit different than a normal game against Wake Forest or somebody.
Yeah, Florida and Florida and Miami, those two are leading up. With Florida, they would have, gator meat for dinner, and then as well as, they would have ice sculptures up, big Florida ice sculptures. So, it really was a time to turn around and seasons can really be made or break on those games. So it's really big. And then, not for me because I was from Ohio, but some of the talent in Florida, it's big for them because they grew up with some of these guys too. So seeing some of your, old high school rivals playing, that all goes into it. So it's a very big week.
Rob, say hello to Rob Browne. Rob's an all-around SEC guy and, really takes this thing in and has been around. Rob, as far as the rivalry and where this thing is, you're a historian of the game. Is there anything, Zebre, like to ask Zebre?
Yeah, first off, I'm an Auburn grad, full disclosure. That Florida State-Florida rivalry is intense as hell. You're talking FSU, 195 miles from Auburn. We're all still, back in 92, everybody wanted you to come into the SEC, but that program is it's unbelievable. And I mentioned, when Florida kind of had their problems in the mid-'80s, in 84, 85, from 87 to 2000, that 14 straight years, Florida State finished no worse than number 4 or 5 in the country. 14 straight years. And we know Mike Norvell from Memphis, friend of mine. I know his agent. Guy can coach his ass off. It blows my mind that Florida State is having the kind of season they're having this year. But you played your whole career there. If you know Loren, that means you're an HCI, high character individual. Okay, so I'm going to throw this at you. The guys that bailed on that game, the 31 guys, it seemed to me like it set a tone in the locker room, and they just haven't been able to get it back. But again, Mike Norvell, the guy, he won 12 games at Memphis. That's like having a great hockey team at the University of the Everglades, okay? The guy can coach. What do you think is going to happen? And it's going to be it's going to be a full 60 for both teams Saturday.
Yeah, it's kind of hard just because, we've had, kind of a quarterback carousel this year. I like what I'm seeing out of the freshman Luke. He had a pretty solid game last Saturday, so seeing if he can pick up from that. And I really like DJ Lagway, man. What I've seen, he's definitely someone that has a lot of talent and can really see the field. I think it's going to be a big game. I think it probably will crack open. Right now, I think we have a lot of stuff to work on defensively and offensively. And I'm not really sure, with the season being over, if we're a running team, if we're a passing team. So we're trying to really still find our identity late in the season. But it'll be a good game. I don't want to really think with my heart because my heart says Florida State. I try to think, off of what I'm seeing. So I really can't sit here and be confident and say the Seminoles are winning. But it'll definitely be a good game.
Yeah, it's a great rivalry, and it needs to be. Ideally, you like to see both teams 10-1, 11-0. It's great for the state of Florida. It's just I don't pull for other teams to lose. I want to beat them when they're at their best. As a fan.
Yeah.
No doubt. David, got anything for Zebre?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say it's an honor to have you here because you're probably the most accomplished athlete we've had on this program, other than Loren Meadows. Is he the legend that we hear he is up there?
Oh yeah, he was a legend. He's a Dayton legend, man. Everybody.
Yeah. Well, he's a budding media legend down here. So you ought to be proud of him up there. When did you get to FU? Were you at the tail end of Bowden and then with Jimbo?
So yeah, I was there 2008. So it was Bobby Bowden's last 2 years, and then Jimbo's first 2.
I guess. So you were recruited by Bowden. People have said Bowden was such a great, once you got in the home. Did he go to your home? What was that like being recruited by him? I mean, because at that point he was such a, it must have been like, God coming down and speaking to you, given, this is Bobby Bowden.
Yeah. And the thing was, a lot of the schools, Florida was one of them, that would be their big kind of recruiting rebuttal when they say, hey, I'm looking at Florida State, Bobby Bowden. Oh man, he's so old. You don't even know what his name is. You won't remember your parents' names, nothing. So, that was always kind of like the thing about Coach Bowden. But, for him to take time and talk to my parents during the visits, really like know who I am, my background, and then, taking time. And then too, my freshman year, it was really nice because as a freshman, we still had 2-a-days, and those were something serious in Tallahassee. And I remember right in between a practice, we were walking back to the locker rooms, and, he was in his cart. And he stopped and picked me up and gave me a ride back to the locker and was asking me how my parents were, telling me to keep up the good work. So, I mean, he was really personable. And I mean, that's what made you want to go out and play your best for him. So it was really a great opportunity. And to be around a legend like that and have that, in my career.
Yeah. Hope that wasn't a violation, him giving you a ride like that. But
well, it's right. As long as it was on the grounds, don't get my man in trouble now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, I'm gonna tell you guys, we were lucky at this school. We had quite a few guys. Zebre, he was kind of in the middle of they won 7 straight conference titles. Zebre was kind of in the middle. We'd had some guys go big time, and then we had a guy a couple years before Zebre go to Ohio State, and then Zebre came along. And I mean, what was crazy is when you look back and you look at these coaches now that are either head coaches or OCs. And you like, I met that guy. Like, I remember Mike Bobo coming in several times, like, hey, where's Zebre? John Hevesy, where's Zebre? Dan Mudlin shows up at 5:45 lifting. Remember, we lifted at 5:45 in the morning, and he couldn't say anything to you. And I'm like, hey, Dan, lead a playbook when you go. I mean, just, Rick Trickett, who was your O-line guy, I mean, literally sat down and went over the zone stuff that you guys were running, and we ran it, and it worked. I mean, just that time was crazy. And I mean, when you look back, Zebre, not just with, I mean, I know you went to Florida State and had a great career and things like that, but when you look back at just your journey, where you were kind of as a freshman, kind of still, learning things, and where you became, one of the top offensive line recruits in the country. I mean, what was that like? What was the process like with your folks? And just, when you look back, just all of it, putting it all together.
Yeah, man, it was just surreal. It was one of those things where, you can talk about it, and that's one thing, but really just living it, it's kind of one thing that's hard to explain because, like you said, you were seeing all these coaches that were either accomplished and you knew who they were, but maybe you didn't know who they were, but in the future they were going to be accomplished. And, I always tell players right now that I'm coaching or anything, like, Jim Harbaugh came and saw me before he was really Jim Harbaugh, when he just got the Stanford coach, and he was trying to get me to believe in him. But by then I didn't know who he was. So I was
right.
But yeah, I mean that, and then, getting courted by colleges, the way they set up, they'll set up the locker room for you, take you out on the field, really give you the whole nine and let you kind of experience that. It's really kind of a once in a lifetime thing. The nice thing too is, and what I think the biggest difference is from now is, when you pick a college back then, you're there for 4 years, you kind of gain the camaraderie with teammates, and you're really kind of growing and living through that culture for that college. I feel like they really don't do that now with NIL because so many people are leaving. But yeah, man, it's a great experience.
Most definitely. Now you played 1 year in the NFL, but then you played in the CFL. And we don't get a lot of CFL guys that'll spend some time way up north where it's cold in like September. What's that CFL life like? I mean, for somebody being an American, you didn't play in any French-speaking cities, though, did you? You didn't play in any place where you speak a lot of French, did you?
I didn't. I was just in
Okay.
Calgary and then Winnipeg, man.
Okay.
It was crazy because, then the conversations are like, well, how am I going to exchange, my currency and try to figure out the best way to, maximize my dollar. And then, looking at best call plans, they didn't have Canada coverage included in, data plans back then. But yeah, it was very nice. I was up in Calgary. So, during that time, I think it got dark at like 4 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, it was bright and early, and definitely the chemistry with like the inclination and the climate, man, it was different. But there were still people up there that could play and ball. So, I mean, the talent level was still there. It definitely was a humbling experience because, you really don't think that when, you're growing up in America and, your goal is college, NFL, you don't see that. So going there and really seeing the talent level, it's different. Had to get accustomed a lot to like the rules and, the different, downage and, how the field goal is a little bit different. But yeah, it was a cool experience as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. Marcia and I actually went up to Calgary. We went to Stampede last summer. So yeah, so we spent some time up there. Went to Banff. So it was definitely a good time. So Rob, I know you being an Auburn guy, those used to be some of the biggest games. Those back when FSU was independent, things like that. I mean, what do you remember about Bobby Bowden, and maybe Zebre can shed some lights on just those rivalries between the two schools?
But I remember as a kid in 1976, we were down in Destin for spring break. Dad's an architect. Went over to Tallahassee with him. My mother said, go with him because my dad's a narcoleptic. He'll fall asleep. Went over to Tallahassee. He met with the athletic director, and they said, we are wanting to build these new facilities. And blah, blah. We got a new football coach we brought in from West Virginia. And I was in the car for 3 hours. Then I started walking around campus. I was like a little kid. Came back. He said, their motto is we'll play anyone, anytime, anywhere. And I kind of remember that. And I remember 1979, Memphis had a pretty decent, team. And they got beat 66-17, 11-0 Florida State. Had Wally Woodham and Jimmy Jordan, the last dual threat, two quarterback system I can remember. Been to Florida State, been to Tallahassee a number of times. But what I remember about Bobby Bowden was when Terry came to Auburn, he would come up and people would invite him to sit in their luxury boxes and in places. He'd go, no, I'm just going to sit out in the stands and eat peanuts. That's just, he was from Birmingham, and he liked to keep it simple like that. But, I mean, what I remember about him, Fumblerooski in 1988, he changed college football. And Florida State was so exciting. They would lose a game like 42-41, but they were the talk because Florida State ran these trick plays and stuff. And then when he brought in, I just remember kind of Mickey Andrews came in there in 84 or 85, and they put a defense with that damn offense. And every time Auburn played Florida State, I mean, it was you drank a handle. It was your nerves were shot. The games always went to the wire. There was occasionally, but there'll never be one better than 42-41 in 1984. But Florida State, Gene Deckerhoff, Florida State Seminole football. Here comes Chief Osceola on the Renegade in the Spirit midfield. Don't guess Campbell Stadium. And I've been to an LSU Florida State game one time. I hadn't seen a fight like that since Monday Night Wrestling at the Mid-South Coliseum. But it is a cool place. And, you just what he did there in all the years in that brand, and then now it just blows my mind. But one thing about Florida State, they got a lot of fans that care. But I just remember Bobby Bowden changed the game and made everybody offense. And then Steve Spurrier came along, and Florida's where all that stuff started. That's what I remember.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't remember those games back then. I was a baby, but I do remember, the last Florida State Auburn game, the national championship. I was actually at that game. That was
PTSD over it. Well, were you in that game? No,
man. And I always tell people it sucks because I left. That was my rookie year.
Yes.
But all my roommates were a year behind me, so they were on the team. So they got big national championship rings. I don't got nothing, man. I got like participation bowl game rings. Man. So.
I mean, I will never forget that one. But Florida State, that brand, and that's why that Florida was always what you call must-see TV because of the skill players in there. And I guess But Loren, you talk about Ohio, Southeast, Southwest Ohio, the athletes that come out of there, it's mind numbing. I mean, there's not another region of the country outside of the South that produces that many players north of the Mason-Dixon line, and that's the state of Ohio. That's fifth most players in the country for Division I football. So you're a product of it, and I'm honored to talk to you, man. This is great.
Yeah, we try to tell them, man. It's you know, I mean, and you know, they talk about no speed. It's some dudes that could roll out up there too. I mean,
Teddy Ginn
most
was from there,
definitely.
from
Yeah,
Cleveland.
Teddy Ginn was from Cleveland, but we got some dudes down Southwest Ohio, and I mean, and what I tell people, and this is something I'm sure you try to tell them, Zebre, is we don't have spring football.
Yeah.
So guys don't really touch a football from basically the end of the playoffs till August. I mean, they can get together on their own and things like that, but we don't get to travel around. And still to this day, even though they've changed some of the rules, I mean, they don't get to do a lot of that. So, but Jimbo Fisher, the transition from Bowden to Jimbo Fisher. I mean, you know, you basically, I mean, I know Jimbo was the OC, but what was that like? I mean, actually, you know, some people, you know, talk about following a legend, but you actually witnessed someone following a legend. I mean, what was that like during that time when Coach Bowden stepped down and you guys moved, you know, to Jimbo Fisher? I mean, what was that like for you? How did the team take it? You know, was it a seamless transition? I mean, nobody sees behind the scenes. What was that like?
I know the good thing for us was Jimbo was actually offensive coordinator my freshman and sophomore year, and he was already titled. He didn't have the official position, but he was already titled the head coach in waiting. So everybody knew he was the associate head coach and the head coach in waiting. So, I mean, from a standpoint of the day-to-day, he was still like the coach that was speaking to the team, still, you know, putting up the game plans. He was calling the plays. Bobby Bowden, I mean, he was more like a father figure. So, I mean, breaking the huddle for practice, he would give us a little speech. He would talk to us at the end of the games. But, I mean, really running the day-to-day with football, the IQ, the board work, that was all Jimbo. So that was pretty easy, smooth transition when Bobby Bowden did step down because we were still hearing the same voice. And you know how, you know, comfortable that is and how serious that is when it comes to a football team. But I mean, it's the only thing that really changed was just the defensive side. Because I know, like Rob was saying, Mickey Andrews, he was actually there my first 2 years. In my junior year, they switched to now Kentucky's head coach, Stoops. So he was the defensive coordinator, and he really turned it around where we were doing a lot of zone coverage. I know Mickey was really known for man coverage all day. So that was the big difference. But, I mean, it obviously worked, and he got Jameis right after us, and they were winning. And we had like a nice little win streak for a while. So it was nice.
David?
I think that validated FSU as a program because, you know, Bowden obviously made the brand and made it, but then to win it again under a totally new regime, that made, you know, that made it, you know, that it's not just one man who did it. FSU is more than one person.
Right.
It just makes the, you know, what's happened recently all the harder to grasp. But what's it been like just for you alumni? I mean, do you have, are you on like a group text with guys and it's just got to be frustrating, but also surprising. I guess it's been the kind of where you're scratching your head and trying to figure out what happened. Because I was talking to one of the guys in Tallahassee today, and they're still scratching their heads too, and just, you know. But I guess I mean, how do you feel? It seems like he's being proactive about this. As far, you know, he got rid of his coordinators, and I get a lot depends on who they bring in with that, you know, who replaces it with. And, you know, as you know, Rob was saying, he can coach. It's just hard to pinpoint what, you know. Are you as baffled as the rest of us at how?
I mean, yeah, man, we went 13-0 last year. It's hard to. I mean, anybody wouldn't see that. I mean, if you put a bet on that, that'd be crazy odds. But I mean, you know, to go from 13-0 to, you know, we just notched our second win last week. You know, that's eye-opening for anybody. So I definitely do like Norvell as a coach. I think, you know, that is the first steps, usually, you know, changing the offensive coordinators. And then, like I said, with the quarterback, getting him as much experience as possible. I think we'll definitely, I mean, we can only go up from here. I don't think there's much, you know, ways to go lower for next year. So hopefully we get back to the glory days next year. We'll see.
All right. Before we let you go, Zebre, you know, catch us up on what you're doing now. You mentioned coaching. things like that. So, we haven't talked that way in a while, just kind of, simple text around Florida FSU, that week and things like that. But, what's going on with you now?
Yeah, man. So I was coaching. I've been living in Indiana, Evansville, Indiana now. I was coaching a couple times throughout the years, offensive line coach back, with what I know. But and then I actually tapped into the former NFLPA's network just for transitioning to a different career. And I took a Microsoft cohort boot camp earlier this year to get kind of into the data tech roles. And right now I'm doing an apprenticeship with Verizon for the marketing team. And it's nice because they're actually with portfolio for their sports brand. So around the NFL, doing stuff with the NHL, MLB. So I'm still around the sports environment. So I love that. And still being able to be locked in with players. So that's what's going on with me, man.
And you got two kids?
Two kids, yeah.
Two kids, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
I mean, I might want some more, but I mean, we can, there's no time.
That's for sure. So we're going to ask you a couple of little quick hitters, but favorite Bobby Bowden story?
Favorite Bobby Bowden story? Oh, man. I guess just like the one I said earlier. I mean, when I was getting recruited, Hevesy, he was the UF offensive line. It was Coach Hevesy and Steve Adazio, and he went on to coach Boston College. But they were offensive line coaches. And when I told them I was looking at Florida State, that was the first thing they said. And they were really connected with my parents. And I don't think you want your son going there because Coach Bowden, like in his 80s, he don't talk to anybody. He calls you by your number. He don't know your name. Don't know anything about you. And so me as a freshman, I go. And at that time, I had a chance to get a starting spot. So I'm just a freshman doing the day-to-day, trying to get known. And I don't know how I'm doing because Coach Trickett, he's a Marine. So he's just like drilling me every day, And after practice, like I said, we in huddle. I'm walking to the locker room and all I'm hearing, Zebre, get on the cart. Let's talk. And it was Coach Bowden, man. I got in and I mean, he didn't have to stop for me. I mean, it was the whole team. And he pulled me aside, called me by my name, asked how I was doing, told me to keep up the good work. And, I mean, that really kind of stayed close to home for me. And then, my parents told me a couple times when they came down, he would always stop and speak to him, too. So it was just nice how that's, the persona he has with other teams. And that wasn't him at all.
Right. Talk about getting off the snide that first after two losses to Florida. You finally turned the corner. Under Jimbo, that first, what was that like?
Man, it was crazy. Tallahassee was alive because I mean, before then, I think we lost to Florida 4 years in a row, and we were getting drubbed. It was not close at all. So that was the year Coach Meyer was still there that 1 year. They had John Brantley. Just that whole week, man, we were just in sync, and I mean, we ended up winning 31-7. One of my old teammates, he actually came for the game, Derek Humphrey. He came and he was in Tallahassee for that week. But, I mean, it was just a great atmosphere. And then it rolled into my senior year as well, too. I mean, like I said, Florida State, that's just as big as Miami, Florida State. And so for us to turn it around, we've lost for 4 years. I mean, that was really a big game. And I think that just really helped drive the success after I left.
No doubt. Favorite Coach Meadows story? I used to be a wild boy, guys. So
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, man. He was a cool coach, man. I guess I just remember. I don't know if you still remember Sahi.
Yeah.
Right. We always talk about that. It was a playoff game. I think my junior year, and we were down like it was Miamisburg. We were down like 14-0. We had the ball right before halftime. We scored, so people were trying to lighten up. And, man, we were walking into the locker room, saw he was singing. Man, he was really going at it. He was the singer of the group. And Coach Meadows came in and just cussed him out, man. Like, we're still down. We're losing. Why are you singing in here? And, man, I mean, it just went quiet. And, I mean, we won the game. That was, like, the laugh of the week, man.
Yeah. Shout out to Sahi Wright, man. A good dude, definitely. Definitely. You guys got anything else before we let him go? Just great to have you on.
We won't ask you for prediction because we won't put you on the spot, but it's been great talking to you, though. It's been good insight.
For sure. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, great insight. And I hope you will come back on with hey, Loren, bring him on our morning show, Sidelines.
Oh
Love to
yeah,
get your
absolutely.
perspective because
Most definitely. Yeah,
you're
this young man comes from a very athletic family. I'll call it out. Great family, but sister played basketball at Texas Tech, and then the other one played at Iowa. So very athletic family. She missed Caitlin Clark, right? Your
Man,
sister.
yes, it was the same situation. Caitlin was right after her. So I mean,
Okay.
she went to the national championship. They still talk.
Yeah.
It's been. I mean, we've had a nice life, man. We've met a lot
Definitely.
around the sport.
Great folks, man. I mean, super family. Please tell them hello. I was trying to get your number, so I did text. I still got your mom's number, so
Okay.
we texted back and forth. But yeah, definitely great to see you, man. If you're ever down this way, you already know.
For sure. Nice to meet you guys. See you, Coach.
Same here.
Appreciate
Man,
you.
happy Thanksgiving. Hey, Z, that man, what 3 people in the family? Iowa, Texas Tech, Florida State.
Sister still coaching at Texas Tech, man. They're doing real well. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
He's first class guy, man. Thanks for letting us talk with him.
Oh yeah.
I think he's got a future in media if he wants to.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say,
Well, it's funny. He was EJ Manuel's roommate, so I mean, they maybe there's a connection there. But I mean, yeah, definitely, we could have had him on for 2 hours. Hit that like and subscribe button to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to talk about our sponsors, Meldon Law. We won't back down. The only official injury law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Check them out on Facebook, Instagram, always giving away freebies. Titan MRI, Gainesville and Lake City's newest MRI facility as well. Definitely want to mention them. We really just appreciate everybody that's been with us basically since I've been on the show. So definitely. So here we are, gentlemen. The Florida Gators. 7-6-5, 2 big wins. We've talked over me. Even Billy Napier was like, hey, I won't be up here answering questions about last week. But what this team has done, where they are and where they're going. I mean, I think 8-5 changes the whole dynamic. And with the quarterback, they're probably the talk of the offseason. Would you say, David?
Yeah, it's funny. Last year, it ended on such a sour note with Arkansas, and I think that resonated the entire offseason. And you could just how the recruiting class sort of fell apart, and they didn't make a bowl, and it was just it put a just a dark cloud over things. I think this has the opposite effect. This will resonate far into through spring practice and everything. That everything is just I hearken back to the 1984 presidential Reagan when I asked this. It's morning in America. It's morning in Gainesville. Where you want to say they haven't turned the corner, but they're turning the corner, and that feels legit.
Yeah.
And with Lagway and just as you said, you saw it months ago. They beat Ole Miss, but not. It's just hard to. There was just so much to that game, beyond things, just the whole Kiffin angle and Princely and all that, and they just ridded a lot of ghost in doing that.
Right. Well, I thought they'd have 4 losses by now. Not maybe the way they were losing, but I thought they would basically go into the game 6-4, beat Ole Miss, beat Florida State, and then have opportunity for a 9th win. So one off, but Rob, this rivalry, maybe because Florida State, or this game because Florida State is down, but because of the 2 big wins, is there a cautionary tale for Napier and company, or should they just go in and dominate Florida State?
I think it'll be a difficult game just because the fact that Florida State, human nature is they're 2-9, they're struggling, and it'll be harder than you think it will be. That's how these games play out. But what I think's going on with Florida is, again, like a pharmaceutical stock with a bunch of drugs in the pipeline, FDA clinical phase 2, phase 3 trials. They're about to release their version of football Viagra. I mean, that's what's happening because you've got a quarterback, you've got DJ Lagway, who's that good, and he's going to pull people in. They go get a resounding victory in Tallahassee and win their bowl game. it's completely changed. Now you go out there and lay an egg against Florida State, it's not going to change that much. But one thing y'all have all talked about, Billy Napier has not lost the locker room, and the chemistry and the guys on this team, they love being at Florida. And look, you can't flip recruits this late in the process unless your own players are able to recruit, because they're your best recruiters. So that means the guys on the Florida team love what's going on there. That's why you're going to end up with a top 10 class. And if I'm wrong, logic is throw it out the window. But that's why it's happening, and I see it happening. I see it playing out that way.
Brendan, I will never forget forever the conversation you and I had in Salt Lake City. And
with the
doubt,
Mormons.
the doubt, and over Kane's chicken fingers and fries.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously, you and I have been around enough football. We're not ready to just turn the page and say all is quote unquote forgiven. But what is this last 2 weeks? What has it shown you, or has it shown you anything?
Well, first of all, I'm wearing my shirt from Saturday because I'm not taking it off till they lose. Okay, that's how big of a Gator fan I am. Okay, let's just start there. That's the Gator fan in me. I love it. I love watching them. I love watching the Swamp. I said, there was a huge relief 2 weeks ago, and we discussed it last week. We kind of got off the schneid against LSU. That big win at home, the relief, that felt like that we went from the negative timeline and like shifted into the good timeline or whatever it is. But then we come back they come back and have a huge win in the Swamp, which was very exciting. I think it's, unbelievable, to see that passion. And I think Billy's got to be thankful for a couple of things. One, the fan base's loyalty. I think the Swamp is a huge part of the last 2 weeks winning. I think the Swamp showed up. I think Gators showed up. It was the loudest I've heard in a long time. I think that's huge. And I think that's a testament to Billy too. And I think obviously DJ Lagway is an incredible athlete. I keep watching him week in and week out. The plays that he makes that aren't the big plays, just to get the ball back to the line of scrimmage, to not make a broken play, to turn a broken play into a first down. He really helps Billy close out those games. So that's all really exciting. I think that as Gator fans, really exciting. Do I think we're out of the woods yet? I mean, and then obviously defensively, that's been a whole change as we discussed it. But do I think we're out of the woods yet? Obviously not. Billy's always been a great recruiter. I think DJ Lagway is a phenomenal recruiter. And I think anybody sees that they want to play for him and play with him. And I think, I think Florida's obviously, the Gators are obviously in the right direction. And Billy gets credit for that. And I got to give him major credit for keeping the locker room and those things together. Do I like some of the play calling at the end of the game? No, I don't. But I don't think I'm the type of person that's going to focus in on some of that negative, because there's just so much positive. And I really see that defensively more than anything else. And that was, is just as exciting to see, even as much as it was exciting to see Lagway just play like a veteran.
No doubt. Before we go, we'll talk about Renstar Medical Research, but Mr. Whitley, would you mind, or you like to?
Can I have one more question to the panel?
Sure.
One more question, and this is not being negative, but if I think this is in the chat, but I've been asking this question: does Billy get credit for Lagway in a sense? Does he start Lagway if Mertz isn't hurt, or are we winning football games right now if we're still in that conundrum, Mr. Whitley?
It's funny how karma sort of, or whatever, it's shined down on the Gator, and that he had to make that change. I don't think that people say, "Gosh, why wasn't he starting Lagway from the start?" Because I don't think Lagway was ready at the start of the season, and Mertz was my dog agrees too.
Gee, the dog.
Yeah.
The dog's going to speak up.
Yeah. But so the timing worked out perfectly. I think that it's a good question, because you really don't know. I think that they would have seen how Lagway was progressing, and that, hey, the ceiling is there and that he's ready. But but he wouldn't have progressed as much because he wouldn't have getting as many snaps. So, in a way, what happened to Mertz is, it's a darn shame and all that, but it might have been the best thing to happen to this program.
I beg to differ. Well, not beg to differ. Yeah, I agree, because obviously he's going to be much better for next year. I think they beat Tennessee with Mertz. And so I think that Mertz, I'm not saying Mertz I think sometimes you have to be careful. Maybe that's what I'll say is Mertz didn't make this team worse. I think sometimes you say, well, okay, was he the better choice? I'm not sure that because I think they may have ended up exactly where they are with or without. And I think, like, say Mertz is healthy and you got Lagway, I think you go to Texas and give them fits. I think if you got Mertz and Lagway against, think if Graham Mertz plays against Georgia, I
think that's a major difference, though? You think Mertz goes in and plays like a Lagway and
well, Lagway
dominates like that?
Well, but dominates who?
Georgia? The line of scrimmage. Look, Lagway makes plays despite the plays being called. Lagway still makes great plays.
I agree, but I think the way the way the defense is playing would have been good for Mertz as well. So, I think the way they've been playing defensively has been as much of a story as it's been DJ Lagway.
But doesn't that attest to the time of possession for the offense and like the offense actually keeping the ball and scoring, and the defense plays they don't have to play on their heels?
Yeah, but they're not possessing the ball. They've been outpossessed 2-1 in both wins.
Yeah, but they're not losing possession. They're scoring touchances, so they're making points. So therefore, you got to play differently.
But who's to say that Mertz couldn't have done the exact same thing
last year?
Well, but they were historically bad on defense, Brendan.
But I just can't get it. We're ready just to cash it in and be like, yep, this is right. Bang. Everyone figured it out. It's all working.
No,
did you see at the end of the game, I felt like, God, we trying to give this thing away?
I think Mertz, here's the thing about Lagway, and I'll say this. I think regardless of what happens this year, I will say that, like David said, the karma will pay dividends, I think, next season, because he has gotten all the snaps and gotten the big wins. And I think that will, pay dividends next year.
Is this a trap game on Saturday? Is Florida's expectations now too good? And now Florida State is going to play just all out. They don't care. Do you guys worry about that kind of a thing, Rob?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's kind of like you're about to jump out of an airplane. You still better think about what you got to do. Jump out, hook up, shuffle to the door, jump right out,
red,
count
yellow.
to 4. You got to think.
Well, shoot, dog.
I think what Florida needs to do against Florida State is go in there, scared, but confident. And like that, they've been hungry, and that means they'll do everything that they've done to beat LSU and to beat Ole Miss, because I do think Lagway, I think Mertz was maintaining. Lagway elevates, and Mertz is a good kid. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. I do think he did help day in and day out to prepare DJ Lagway, and I think Billy Napier does. And look, all the criticism that comes is just part of being a big-time program. You're going to get ripped to shreds, and Billy Napier admitted, the criticism. Y'all talked about what happened out in Utah last year, the start of the 23 season. Well, he should be criticized for that. And
he took ownership for that on SEC Network yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see his interview yesterday morning?
Yeah,
absolutely.
He had a great answer to that, where he said, "Look, a lot of this criticism, we deserved it. He straight up took it, and I never really seen him really do that, which shows a lot of growth. Truly, it does. That's why you got to give him credit."
Well, let me buzz in real quick. So we got a listener, Dentario Johnson, says, "Are you serious, Loren? Did you not see Mertz last season? You mean Mertz that threw for over 70%, completed 70% of his passes, and only had 3 interceptions last season?" Well, that's one thing. And then he said Mertz was in the way. He won't play nowhere else. Well, I talked to about 4 scouts that were there at the game that think that Mertz will have a long career in the NFL. He may never play a down, but I think Mertz can be somebody said about like Shane Matthews, where he's smart enough, has enough integrity, has enough character where he can handle a clipboard for 14 years. And if that's what happens to that young man, more power to him. I think that young man has been the starter at Wisconsin, not a slouch school, and the University of Florida, another not slouch school. So I think I'm all big.
Yeah.
I mean, this game is too tough, and that position is too tough to just discount people for no reason. I mean, like I said, if we get off the field, Graham Mertz had nothing to do with us getting off the field on 4th and 17. He doesn't play defensive back at Missouri. So, come on. Let's be better, and let's understand how tough this game can be for people.
Let's give credit to Super Chat, $2. FSU does not have the ability to play and we'll possibly stop it. Brian Fisher, thank you very much for the $2 for your comment.
Thanks, Brian.
If anybody
Appreciate
wants to throw in a couple of bucks into the tip jar, it's ladies' night tonight. You can do that too, and we will read your comment no matter what.
Right. So,
but thank you. You can do that too. So thank you for the $2.
So, Mr. Whitley, may I, or are we still holding off on?
Oh no, you can go ahead. This is I'm entering the transfer portal.
and I want to say, I'm a person that I really try to be gracious, and for everything, i.e. guys like Buddy Martin, Brendan, Rob Browne, even. But when I first started this thing and was just kind of finding my way through, David Whitley was one of the first, what I call full-time sports writers, guys that do this for a living on a consistent basis, to take the time to have conversations with me, not cast me aside as just some goofball or just kind of jumping around. And I would see him both, privately, at the gym and things like that, but obviously professionally in the press box. And, I really appreciate that. I want to say that personally. And, I don't know how many more columns you're going to write, but if you guys don't read David, it's a great read. And, great writer. Gainesville is losing one of his best, and the Florida beat as a whole. So,
well, you're too kind. And reason I talk to you is because I can see a talent when I'm good judge of talent. No, and you're for a second career, you're doing quite well.
Well,
you're a natural at it.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I don't know what you got going on. I'm sure you'll tell us at one time, but just because you don't.
There you go, Dave. I got a little applause for you. Take a bow, Mr. Whitley.
Thank you. This is my last official act as a Gainesville Sun.
Yeah, but you can come back. You don't have to be. You can be former Gainesville Sun writer David Whitley as well. Yeah. I mean, your takes will always be welcome, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. And Rob, I still hadn't met you in person, but it's always a hoot.
Hey, you'll definitely be coming on. You've got too much experience. I mean, that's
now you're available to come on our show. So
yeah.
Like
you're never really retired, not with the brain that you have. And that's
we're going to start the Whitley Report, and you're going to have your own podcast. You don't know it yet, but it's coming. You're going to take.
Aren't you from Birmingham?
Nights.
Originally, yeah. In fact, you're talking about Bobby Bowden stories. I probably haven't. My father went to college with him there at Howard.
Yep, wow. Sanford,
yeah. The time it was
Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah, oh yeah. And one quick story: my father was the incoming president of the H Club at the time. They played He was on the football team, and Bowden at that point had been there a couple of years. He was like big man on campus, and the initiation for the H Club was they would blindfold these guys and strip them down to their underwear and get them in a circle. And the upperclassmen could go in and punch, kick, whatever, until the guy, another senior, came in and pulled them out of the circle. And so the way most of them did, they went and they would kick them in the groin and stuff like that. But my father said, "I'm no fool." So I got in there. First time somebody got near me, I fell on the floor, and then I felt somebody come out and reach me. And it says, I knew it was Bobby because he's the only guy who had any sense in there. And so he got him out of there. And he kept him from getting kicked in the groin. So I always told Bowden after that, says, if he hadn't done that, he'd gotten kicked in the groin, and I wouldn't be here now. because
that's right.
he could. You mentioned football Viagra. Well, you know,
Yes.
and so
Yeah.
I always felt that I sort of owed Bowden in my life in a way.
That's awesome. Well,
great
let's
story.
end on that one. Really appreciate you guys coming
Love
on.
it.
Brendan, throw it up there. Renstar Medical Research, the Brantley family, definitely appreciate their support. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the medical questions of today.
The health questions.
Health questions of the
health-
day. Oh God, I'm
It's
struggling.
Renstar Medical
Medical
Research
Research. There
seeking
we go.
tomorrow's answers
Beautiful.
to the health questions
of
of today.
There we go.
No, but
And,
thank you, because we love them dearly, and the Brantleys and everybody.
Shout
and
out to
everyone
Scott Brantley.
associated. Just saw Joey Sorrentino, Dr. Sorrentino, by the way, who gave me hooked me up with a quick filling thing. I needed an emergency. Saw me and got me in right away. Dude, what a Marion Dental Group. You got to check them out. Just quick pub,
Yeah.
no association. Great Gator, as you know, Joey Sorrentino. So, and the son of everyone down there at Renstar. So it's all attached here in Ocala, and we're all a part of the same Gator family. So we love Renstar. Gotta love
And
those
shout
guys.
out to the
Been with
great
us forever.
Scott Brantley. Get to see
obviously,
Scott
Scott
every
Brantley,
week. Scott's hanging on, doing getting himself together. But just really appreciate Scott. Seeing Scott I get to see him every week during the fall, and just really appreciate the folks at Renstar.
Awesome stuff.
And happy
All right,
Thanksgiving.
guys. Happy
Oh
Thanksgiving.
yeah! By the way, that's
Everybody
happy
enjoy.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. We get so caught up in football, we forget about Thanksgiving. But definitely be thankful for the things you guys have, and I appreciate all you guys, your friendship, your camaraderie, and obviously your opinions, and it's wonderful.
All right.
Well, love ya, John
Love
Boy.
you.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Night, everybody.
We'll see
See-
you. See you around next week. See you, Lauren.
All right, boss.